for having me back here again. I know I was last year in 2019, December or November, and it's been a long while, even for me in Africa. I was not able to leave my house because of COVID-19. But I'm so glad and thankful to God that I'm here.
All right. Need to turn it up a little bit? Yep.
Okay. Is that better? Can you hear me from the back?
Yeah.
Okay. I was saying it's been difficult for me to even leave my house for 2 years to go anywhere. I worked from home because of COVID. Everyone was working from home. Uganda, where our main work is, was locked down for 2 years. And that meant no education, no schooling was going on. But I'm so glad to know and let you know that as Peace, as an organization, we are focused on 3 major things that we want to see happen in that community of the Dinka people living in the settlement. One of the things, we are educating children. Why do we educate children? Because children are the core of every nation. If we do not educate them and train them right, South Sudan will continue fighting. So we believe that with education, they'll be able to read, write, and be able to read the Bible and can communicate with the outside world. I was there recently, and 2 little boys decided to come and read the Bible for me. They had 2 little Bibles, and they just walked to me, and long verses. So one would get tired and another one would take over. At the end of it, I asked them, why did you think you should read the Bible for me? And one of them told me, when Pastor Simon is not here, I am going to preach. I'm like, God is already doing things through these children. And to see them read the Bible, I'm seeing God beginning to work through their lives. And I was telling Mark yesterday that if we could get those simple Bibles for the children and we ship them to Africa, that will be one of the things I would really love to see them read the Bible for themselves. And God would just interpret those words by himself into their lives, that they will grow up into men and women that we envision them to be. So on education and the lockdown in Uganda, 2 years, most schools didn't go to school. But the district where we work developed materials for home learning. So children could use those materials to learn from home so that they don't miss out on anything. They would just keep going and graduating into the next class. But all schools closed down, sent off their teachers and everybody. But because we are in this settlement where they all live, the school is in the settlement, everybody lives there, we discussed with our teachers who accepted that they would go every morning, and every teacher committed to go to 5 homes every day, just to meet with the children and help them to learn what was in those materials that had been developed by the district education office. For 2 years, that's what we did, because we had money to pay the teachers' salaries, so it was easy for us to have them stay on and just teach. And that is why in 2020, the children we have in grade 5 now were in grade 3. So we really didn't lose out or miss out anything like the other schools did. And that's something I've seen God has done for Peace, even when I was not there, when everybody thought everything was lost. God still worked through our teachers and through the government office in the district to have our children learn. And now they're in grade 5. They're the same ones who are reading the Bible for me. That is something we really want to thank God for. Another thing I learned during COVID was there was so much going on, and yet I was not able to go. And God just reminded me, Rosemary, you don't have to be there. I will do my work, whether you are there or not. So he's reminding me that it's not about me. Every day he reminds me it's not about Rosemary, it's not about a human being, but God is just using us as vessels to have his work done where it is happening. So the other thing we are also doing is training the teachers to learn how to do agriculture so that they can train the children of South Sudan. Many South Sudanese, especially the community we are dealing with, are not agricultural. They are more living on livestock, but now they couldn't carry their livestock to Uganda. So we are training them to learn how to do agriculture, that they can produce their own food, eventually to tell the United Nations that they'll not wait for them to give them those handouts. And we have an organization we are partnering with called Flint Global. They should be on their way to Uganda now. From tomorrow, they are going to train these leaders and the teachers on how to do agriculture as a business, how to do business well in a godly manner, and what do you do with the profits you have? Is it just for you and your family, or is it to make your community better and help somebody else to be better? So we are working on sustainability, that they will eventually do their own thing and run their own businesses. We are empowering women. And one beautiful thing that came out was there were women who said they wanted to learn how to do tailoring. So we bought 8 sewing machines. I think it was in 2019. And 16 women have been learning how to sew. And we brought in a professional teacher, trainer, who has worked with them for 2 years. And last year in December, they graduated. But we just wanted to encourage them and see, can they start their own businesses? Because it's one thing to train someone, it's another thing to enable them to get started. So these 16 women, we asked them, if you want to do your business, what do you really want? And they said they wanted a sewing machine for each one of them. And we told them we cannot give them all the money to buy a sewing machine. If they are willing to contribute 50% of the cost of the machine, then we would give them the balance of the 50%. And at one point they said, no, we don't have money. I told them, if you don't have and if you cannot give, it means you cannot start a business. We will give those who are willing and able to give the 50%.
Rosemary, these are treadle sewing machines.
Yes, yes. And within a week, they had already given the money, so we gave them the difference, and every one of those 16 women have a sewing machine, and they sit along the road sewing, and they are even the ones making the school uniforms. So the parents go to them to buy the school uniforms from them. So the business for the women is ongoing. We also gave them a startup kit. There's something in Africa we call Village Savings and Loans Associations. So this is where they come in and they start giving money, saving money as different groups. So we have 150 women. The target for us with women is because they are the ones who are always with the children. So they are the ones everybody looks up to have food on the table, to make sure the children are dressed up. So we decided, you put yourselves in groups. So we have 5 groups of women. Every group has 30 women. And each one of them are having a savings. They even have their own constitution. They have the saving books so that everyone has got their book, the recording when you have given your savings. And out of this money, they borrow or lend and get it back with interest. So the first group of 30 women, we gave them money in September 2019. And we told them they can use this money for 12 months. They can lend it out, they can do business with it, borrow among themselves. All we shall need after 12 months is the principal amount we gave them of $1,500, but they will keep the interest and see what to do with it to continue with their business. So 12 months ended in 2020 when COVID was really high and everything was locked down in Uganda. But surprisingly, these women come back with the $1,500 to give it back to the organization so that another group can have it. But how much had they made? They had made more than $2,000 in interest. And so we told them that is the money we wanted you to have to help you start your own businesses. So all the 5 groups have now received the startup kit. They are doing their businesses, and we can't thank God more that out of these 150 women, they are so fired up. They want to do business and see their businesses succeed. And in the process, they are able to pay like $1 every school term for every child in the school. Why are we asking them to pay that money? Because these children are growing up, and in 2024, at the end of 2024, the ones in grade 5 now are going to sit for a national exam. This decides whether or not these children can go to high school. If you don't pass that examination, you cannot go to high school. So high school in Africa is boarding. So you must pay for boarding expenses and tuition expenses. That is not cheap. If we don't get them into the system of them knowing that education is not free throughout, it will be difficult for them to send their children to high school. So we've started doing that. And right now, I think in the account, the PTA account, we have about $2,000 that belongs to the PTA. And we are saying, if they continue like that, it will be easier and possible for them to pay their children's high school fees. The other thing we are doing with the women, training them on how to do business as Christians. How do you do business as a Christian that you will not cheat the next person on the price of what you are doing, and that the money you make out of profit, do you give some back to God because you didn't work so hard for it? Somebody gave you a seed. Can you also plant a seed for someone else to benefit from? So they are doing all these things, and when you go there and see these women, they are so busy. They are doing their beadwork, they are doing their embroidery. They don't stop, and there are 150 of them. This is just changing that community, transforming that community in a way that nobody ever envisioned. And then we are equipping church leaders. Why did we think of equipping church leaders? And maybe before I go to church leaders, as these women are meeting, we have organized for them to do Bible studies. Because business is one thing to do business. Are you doing it as a Christian? So if you have to encourage one another to do it right as a Christian woman, you have to encourage one another through the Word of God. So they have every week on Tuesdays and Thursdays, they meet as groups, and they are doing Bible study. Another time they are just praying for one another before they do the other business. And we are hoping that through this, they can also help their children as they learn from school. When they come home, it's not just school doing it, but it's school and home doing it. That children will grow up to know how to live with one another peacefully and in a godly manner, that we shall produce a godly generation that we are bringing up right now. So equipping the church leaders, this started way back in 2015 when they asked us to help them, train them in peace building. But we realized peace won't come until you deal with your own trauma, because all these men and women are traumatized. So it's hard for them to even talk peace before they deal with their own pain. So since 2015, we've been training them. We bring in 20 leaders from the first time we did it, just 2 tribes, those big ones that were always fighting in South Sudan. So at the end of 2 years, when they graduated, they told me that, Rosemary, we would like this training to expand to other tribes living in the refugee settlements. So I told them, the best thing will be, we cannot increase the number of 20. We have to maintain our number of 20 participants, but it is up to you to make sure you bring on people from those different tribes. So they named 7 tribes, and they said, and we should not leave out the host community church leaders. So right now we have 7 different tribes who are South Sudanese tribes who are coming for training. At the moment we have up to 20 that we have trained. And next month, June, we are going to bring in another 20 for 2 years to be trained, so that it is multiplying itself. I'm not this person who thinks we should do a big thing. I believe in let's start small, let's go deep, and that's why we do 2 years of training with the church leaders. And once they get into the system, they have dealt with themselves, peace will come automatically. It comes, it just comes. Because you have dealt with your own pain, you've dealt with your own issues. The hatred you had, you have dealt with it through the word of God and through the training you've received. What will stop them from telling somebody else? So we have a follow-up program that we do after training. We follow them up to be sure they are doing the right thing. And that gives us accountability from their end, that they are not just coming for training and going home to sleep. So they are working, they are at work when they leave the training. And I can't thank God more. You've done this with me since the beginning. You've walked with me all these years. And that's why I come back to tell you this is what we have done. And we have 700 kids in the school. When I went back in February, I saw all these children, and many of them have grown even slightly taller than me, and I'm going, I don't think I can manage this, but I realize it's not me who is doing it. God is doing his own work. And if he can multiply his word through these children, why not? And it just takes me back to the very beginning when I was in South Sudan, when they said they wanted education for their children. And I asked them, why do you want education for your children? And one of them, one man, I remember his face, I remember how he was dressed, and he told me, when you look at us seated around here, we are all chiefs. And any chief in Africa can read and write, but none of us can read or write. But if you bring a school for our children, they will learn how to read and write. Because we hear there is a man called God. They didn't say there is God. He said we hear there is a man called God. And we hear that there is a book written about that man. So if our children learn how to read and write, they will tell us if that man is real. And I think that is what we are seeing happen among the Sudanese community right now living in the settlement. Thank you for doing it with me. We've come a long way. We haven't finished. I know God still has a lot of work for us to do. So if you have any questions. Yes, Derek.
You talked a lot about what's going on with the women. What are the men doing?
The men are there and not there. They are there and not there. Some who have gotten jobs to do for the NGOs that live there, who work there, are doing it, but there are not many. They sit around playing stones and the whole day. Yeah, they don't do much. Yeah, that's why we started with them to do agriculture, but they just... So the only man who picked it up was Pastor Simon, and he still continues. He has rented land, he's planting, he's growing his own crops and harvesting, but the rest of them just fizzled out.
Mm-hmm. How do you change that for the young men that they don't grow up and say, hey, I'm going to be like my dad, my son?
Not just the young men. Like I said, South Sudanese, especially the Dinka, are not an agricultural community. So one of the things we are even extending the agriculture training to the teachers is for them to pick it up and train these young children in the school. Because we have about 2 acres of land which is fenced off that we are going to use for agriculture. And my hope is that each child will be given a little plot to start learning from there, and that the teachers can use the rest of the land to plant their own food, because they live on the school compound. We have built accommodation for them. So they can use part of that land to grow their own food. And in the process, the children can learn. If they learn now to do it, I'm sure they'll grow up knowing that it's just part of life to do that. Yes?
Are some of the teachers men? Are some of the teachers men?
Yes, most of them are actually men. We have several men who are teachers, and they have really embraced the agriculture training. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But most of them are Ugandans, so, but they are the ones teaching the children, so it will come out beautifully.
So they are role models for the
Yes,
children.
yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
However, do you see any hope of South Sudan becoming stable enough that they'll be able to move back?
That's a big question, and it's hard to tell, because right now, from what I hear from many of them, is that the leadership in South Sudan is preparing to go back to fighting. Because the election is supposed to happen next year, but they don't want it to happen. So the only way it won't happen is if they fight. There will be no organization to have the election take place. And when you talk to most of the parents and the community members, they say they'll not want to go back to South Sudan until their children are fully educated. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Can you give us an update on your family?
Oh, I spoke to my girls this morning. They are doing very well. I am a grandmother of 5. Thank you. 2 boys and 3 girls. The eldest is 7, and the second one is going to be 4 years in August, Ariana. The first one is called Tori Jabari. The second one is a girl called Ariana. The third one is called Mia. She's going to be 3 years in July. And the fourth one just turned 1 year in March. And the last one, the fifth one, was 6 months yesterday. So they were celebrating, you know, the 6-month one is Valerie's daughter, and the family of her husband planned to go and receive the baby officially. They do it in their culture. So they came yesterday to receive the baby officially. It was a big deal. I had to ask my sister to travel to be there with the girls in my absence. So there were 70 people coming to Valerie's house. So my daughters had to make sure there was outside catering and everything happening so that Valerie is not overwhelmed. But it went pretty well. Yeah, I'm very grateful. Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So tell us, how many people are working for Peace International right now?
Right now we have a staff of 30 people in Uganda and in Nairobi. Nairobi we are just the 3 of us, but Uganda has the majority staff.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it is. Yes.
Rosmeary, would you be able to share just a little bit about with the trauma training, what that first meeting was like with pastors in the area, and kind of where they're at now, and like what is some of the food?
When we first started, like I said, with 2 tribal groups, the Dinka and the Nuer, because they are the ones who had really fought in South Sudan that caused the civil war. And when they asked for help, we started with them, but it was not easy because they say they want to be helped. But when you are sitting in this room so that they tell you what they want, they all keep quiet. The church leaders came. I had been told they would tell me how they want it done and who will be there, and they come to this meeting and they are all quiet. So I'm asking them, you asked me to come. But before I went, let me tell you, I had to go to report to the office of the Prime Minister to let them know that I was going to meet these two tribes in one of the settlements. And they quickly told me, you cannot go, because these guys are going to fight. And so if they start fighting, we don't want to be responsible as a government. So we will not let you go. And I said, I wanted to go. So they said, if you insist, then we are going to prepare a document you must sign that you shall not hold this office responsible for your own self and the people you are going to meet. So I said, it's fine. So I signed off the piece of paper and I went. So for 1 hour, we were waiting for the Nuer church leaders to come. But they eventually came, and I asked each one of them why they asked me to come and why they think this training would help them. And another man in a different place in the refugee settlement says, we have lived as enemies, and everything has been done, everything possible in South Sudan has been done for us to live peacefully. But it has failed, and we believe the church is the only institution left to help people go back to live peacefully. So we want to start with the two of us, because we also realize we are not strangers as Nuer and Dinka. We were children of one. Dinka and Nuer were twins. They were children of one mother and one father, but they just happened to be born twins. And they have grown so big that they think they are strangers, and so they have created enmity between them. So they said they would like to go back and live like children of the same parent. So we talked a lot, and I told them we would see what to do. I bought for them food to cook and eat together. But when the training began in 2015, we would have, because they are out of the settlement, we brought them to this hotel, so it is meals time. And you would see the Dinka would serve food, and you see them moving as Dinkas, sit separately, the same with the Nuer. So with time, we realized what was going to happen, that they will not even sit together. They want help, but at the same time, they don't want. So we had to get them do group discussions as a mix. Then we also knew women put together with men, they are not always comfortable, but we had to do that, trying to see how can they blend with the men and bring out ideas that men would maybe never bring up. So that started helping us to just bring them together. By the end of the week, I could see them hugging each other and sitting together to eat. It has improved over the years. By the end of the 2 years, you can't tell who is Dinka and who is Nuer unless you look at their faces, the marks on their faces. So it has worked pretty good. And they are the same ones who said, let us bring in other tribes to benefit from this. And the government official who we would invite into the training, the first training, he told us, this training is for everybody. Even our Muslim brothers need to come and be trained. He is Muslim himself. So, it is just spreading, and they say those communities where the leaders have come for your training are very peaceful. We don't have problems with them. The children in your school are best behaved. You don't see them behaving like other children from other schools. So we just thank God that this will grow into something unique that other people can learn from. And like I said, when these children are grown and they do the examination, not all of them will pass the examination to go to high school. So what do we do for them? I think Mark and some people have asked me even when I was in Nashville. This is where now we look at, they are now educated. They've had 7 years of real schooling. They can read and write. They can communicate in English. This is a good group to train in something like vocational training so that we are not going to lose them. As these ones transition into high school, those who won't make it, some of them will be because of school fees. We can have something for them. But that goes, God knows how it will work and when it will happen. But yeah. Any other question?
We've heard from you for years and years and years. What's one of the things that's over this last year maybe that's excited you about history, or something that's maybe a little
Just come with your question again.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, what's something in this last 6 months to a year that has really stood out to you in this industry?
Okay. Like I said at the beginning, sometimes, I think Barry knows me, Vicky knows me, I'm like, this should have happened yesterday, so I'm that kind of a person. When I want things to happen, I want them to happen, you know, the moment I'm thinking it should be happening. But just given the past, not even just 6 months, past 2 years, things have just been happening, and happening on the positive side when I wasn't there. So God just reminds me every now and then that it's not about me. And it really humbles me that I don't have to be there for things to happen. But what has stood out the most is just to see how the children have grown. I think the Bible reading for me was a highlight that I could not underestimate. That was just, you know, I was shocked in the first place, but I cried just watching those children read the Bible. They didn't read for me the storybook. They didn't show me what they do in class, but they read the Bible. For me, it speaks volumes in the work we are doing. And yeah.
What are some needs that you see coming up that people have not already committed to training for?
When we had our board meeting on Friday, it came out that we are still short of $150,000, which is on our budget, our planned budget for this year. But when I was there in Uganda last month, I met with the contractor. We are building another block of classrooms. But he said, because these children are going to sit for their exams, they need more time to study. There's no lighting in that place. So he advised that we need to have solar, because we don't know, even when you fix electricity, it is never there. Mark will tell you, Mark and Laura will tell you, most of the time there's no electricity. So we believe if there is solar which can work throughout and we don't need anything else when we have solar, it can light the whole property up to the end where the teachers live. And another thing is, I don't know if Mark gave you the picture of how our property in Uganda looks like. There was a school run by Save the Children. And because they do, you know, they are quick fixers. They don't stay long term. So in 2020, they left. And they had built these 3 classrooms with an office on it, and have school equipment, you know, play equipment there. So they just left, and the government told us, since you are doing a good job in your own school, why don't you take this school? It's just, we just shared a fence. So that is no longer Save the Children, it is our school. So it is part of what we have, and that is why we have so many children, 700. And that's another beautiful thing that has happened in the past few months, that God just provided it when we needed it. So we need solar lighting, and because of the amount of land we have, and we are expanding to the other side and having some people move away from very close to the school compound, we need the place to be fenced, which needs money, which we don't have in the budget because we didn't foresee it coming. So there are those things, and then we need school desks for the new classrooms that are coming up. It is in the budget, but not yet funded. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you have any idea what it would be the cost of the solar panels?
$7,000. Yeah.
You mentioned a need for more Bibles.
Yes, Bibles. This, it will make me very happy to see every child holding their own Bible and reading. Yeah.
And it's best you can just, if we were to give money to you, you could buy them there, or they have to be shipped over.
You know, they can be shipped to Atlanta. My cousin lives in Atlanta, and she told me when I came that there is a man, a Kenyan man, who lives in Atlanta, and he ships things every month to Kenya. And you don't have to pay anything else apart from the $200 you pay to ship a crate of stuff. And the weight does not matter for as long as they fit in that crate. So if we can get them to Atlanta and have him ship and we pay the $200, I think it's worth it. Yeah.
Do you have a certain kind of Bible so that all the kids will have the same kind?
I really, because they are still young, I'm looking at the simple English Bibles, which are not complicated to read, and maybe the letters to be slightly bigger. Yeah.
Time for one or two more questions, if anybody has.
Rosmeary, you talked about after the kids, if they don't meet their exams, if they go into like some vocational program. Is there a bridge between vocational programs leading men to be in more of a leadership role in their communities and their families versus the men playing stones all day? Like, what's the disconnect in those two places?
That is what we are trying to see. If they miss to go to high school, what are the practical things we can train them? Things they can do with their hands. Like, can they learn how to paint houses? Can they learn how to do carpentry? You know, things like that. And can girls learn more of the tailoring and cookery lessons? So that, they, you know, things that are practical that would make them do business and earn their own living. Yeah.
Is there, I guess I'd be curious, is there the way you have like the micro loans for the women who's sewing, would there ever be a chance for the men to have a micro loan type program to grow their vocational skills and business?
What is the question again? Sorry.
I want to know if there was business loans for men. Let me ask you this way. Many organizations have tried it. What Rosmeary talking about is not something that's looking at Sudan or Uganda or Kenya. Men in Africa are a bunch of slugs. They're lazy.
Very lazy.
The field work is done by women because it's considered to be beneath men. So men sit around and drink banana beer and play stones, which is a gambling game, and have affairs. And women do everything else.
That's true. So that's why we are looking at women, this empowering women. That's the reason. They get the job done. Yes, we can.
But what you are doing is raising up young boys to be good men. To be really hard. But you're
so at the moment we are trying to see, can we bring out the whole child, not just the girls, but together with the boys so that they are not growing up like their own fathers. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Rosmeary.
Thank you. Oh, you had a question. I don't know if you'll allow.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what happens if the students do pass the exam, but then don't have the money to go to the high school for more tuition?
Our aim is to have them unlearn being dependent on being done things for. And that's why we started the $1 being paid for every child every school term. So I'm sure they'll work hard, just like the women who said we can't raise the money for the machine, they did. We are hoping it will be the same. Yeah.
What are you talking about for tuition for a high school student, tuition and board? For one high school student, what would tuition and board be in Uganda?
I wouldn't know right now, but it's not cheap.
So
Yeah.
I know we didn't get all of the questions answered, but you have another opportunity this afternoon from 2 to 4 at our house. Rosemary will be there to answer your questions or talk with you. And then again on Tuesday morning, we have a women's coffee for women and kids, 9:30 to 11 at my house. So
Rosemary
be
will
there.
also be at